Back now to one of our top stories. The new calls for a congressional investigation into the death of an American man working in Singapore. Shane Todd was found dead in his home overseas last June. Officials in Singapore call it a suicide, but his family believes it may have been murder. They say their son was on his way home to the United States after telling people that he was worried his employers were using him to help China get its hands on some sensitive information. Joining me now, Shane's parents, Rick and Mary Todd. Thanks to both of you for being here. And I know now you are on Capitol Hill trying to get an investigation into what really happened. Mary, let me start with you and tell us in a nutshell why you believe that this was no suicide.
Before Shane, after January, after he was trained on a Vico machine, he went back to Singapore and started telling us that he was being asked to compromise U.S. security. He was extremely uncomfortable with what they were asking him to do, and he also told us that his life was being threatened. We talked every single week on Skype, and his concerns continued. He said he was meeting with a Chinese company. He did not give us their name.
Now, I know that your son was, he was a brilliant guy and computer genius and worked in an area that most of us don't understand, but that the Chinese would certainly be very interested in. Rick, ultimately, he chose to leave the Singaporean firm. What would the motive have been for murder? He was leaving, he was coming back to the United States.
Very simply, he was the key man for the Vico. He knew all the formulas and the recipes. And then when he was broached by the company, who we later identified as Huawei, he would have
That's the Chinese company.
That's correct. He would also known all the key players, all the formulas, everything that he was asking for, and he'd be able to identify the company, and he could also identify who was contacting him.
Mary, tell us about the note, the suicide note that you were given that they claimed your son wrote.
Well, first of all, they gave me a description, told me categorically this is how my son hung himself, and it was a very detailed description, followed by the suicide note, and they handed it to us. It was a typewritten note that they said they got off of his computer. And the note started by thanking IME for giving him every opportunity to succeed, and that he was sorry he did not meet their expectations. That was my first sense of joy as a mother, to know my son did not write this note, and I knew in my heart at that point he was murdered. He did not take his own life.
And IME was his employer at the time. And I know that you said that then he gave what you called a pathetic list of memories, of family memories,
Yes.
that you just do
Yes.
not believe he would have written. Tell us why, Mary, on that.
Well, first of all, we are a very close family. I have 4 sons, and they're all best friends, and we are a family that travels together, prays together, stays together. And the memories that he wrote were, one is barbecues on our house on the hill. Another one was Shirley Temples on the beach. We've never, ever done Shirley Temples on the beach. The whole note was just pathetic, and then he gave 2 sentences to his brothers, who are literally his best friends, that weren't personal at all. It was incongruent. It didn't make sense.
Rick, I know that that he was stressed out. Your son was stressed out by what he was going through. Fearing that perhaps his life might be in danger. I assume the Singaporean authorities might say, well, whatever stress he was under, that's what led to him taking his own life. Did you believe he was in a mental state where he could take his own life?
No, Shane would never do that.
You just don't think he was capable of it?
No, he's vocalized it. It's been publicized that there was a time that he had a bout with depression in 2002, but it was just a lack of serotonin, and it was turned around immediately. Shane was a larger-than-life type of individual. He played hard, he worked hard, he loved life. That was the way he was.
I know that's why he went to Singapore, because he wanted a job that would bring adventure to his life.
Yeah.
And they may have gotten too much of that. I know this, just so our viewers know, that he worked for the Singaporean company IME, but this Chinese company, Huawei, has been described by our own chairman of the House Intelligence Committee as a serious threat to U.S. national security. So he had reason to be concerned when suddenly he had to be dealing with them, and they were trying to tap into his expertise. Mary, what can we do? What can Congress do to press these international authorities for a real investigation and real answers?
What has to happen is we need a congressional investigation. The most important thing, we have Shane's external hard drive with the evidence that was accessed after his death twice, and the Singapore police have both of his computers. We need to work together with the Singapore police to come to a conclusion as to what happened. So we want pressure put on the Singapore government, the Singapore police, from our government in a congressional investigation to bring the two together and really investigate this for our U.S. security.
Mary and Rick Todd, very sorry for the death of your son. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.